this is the session 4 of Talk the Walks, and I welcome all of you here present today with all the busy schedules. Thanks for accepting our invitations and coming here, and on some of them reservations. First of all, I want to thank this place, Noteworthy Cafe, who is sponsoring the venue for us, and their services are really, really appreciated. And the topic for today is invention and innovation. So I'll give a little bit of a starting point so that we can enter into the conversation. It's actually a very similar two topics. Many people get confused. What is invention and what is innovation? To give you a little bit of idea, those who have not heard this before are confused already, I can tell you this one, and these two gentlemen can correct me all if I'm wrong. Invention is something that you are coming a novel idea for the first time. Mostly it's an R&D idea which is not tested how it's going to work in the industry or the market. Whereas the innovation is basically taking that product to a marketable, usable product, or sometimes existing products or services improvements. So this is the two differences. With that, I'm innovating my way of running the Talk the Walks also. Thimal, being a banker, do you believe in innovation?
Absolutely.
Why?
I mean, if you look at all the products that we currently take for granted and use on a day-to-day basis, like the ATM, like internet banking, like mobile banking, or more recently like blockchain, they're all innovations, or in fact inventions. So I absolutely, as a banker who's in the service industry and we put the customer at the heart of everything we do, innovation and inventions are a key part of the current day banking.
Yeah, right. With that entry, I'm going to ask the same question from you, Kushan. I didn't even introduce you yet, but I'm going to ask a question. Kushan, Sri Lanka's GII, Global Innovation Index, is at 29.9 if I remember in 2017 June. My question to you is, we are the 90th position at the moment of the global scheme of things. With your background, do you think Sri Lanka has a position in innovation in the global scale?
Yeah, I'm quite surprised when I saw that ranking that you mailed this morning, because you had Switzerland on the top and Israel maybe around the 15th or 17th. So I really, not too sure how they arrived at those figures. But nevertheless, for Sri Lanka, yeah, we need to do a lot of things in terms of innovation, because people are really not working very hard on innovation. I think we don't have the tools. So recently we did a project with the government for about 200 schools, giving kids innovation kits. So we got BBC microbit and lots of sensors so that they can plug in and they can start innovating products. So it's going to be part of the curriculum from grade 6, 7 and 8 of innovation. So as an innovation company, we thought this is something that we need to do for the schools.
All right, guys, those guys on the audience as well as watching us offline, online, the reason for bringing these two gentlemen, the legends in the country, for a reason. Banker, a leader of one of the leading banks in Sri Lanka, DFCC, and another MD of one of the leading inventing and innovation companies of Sri Lanka, Orange and Oreno. It's Kushan. So I'm not going to give any explanation of who they are. I'm going to ask first Kushan, would you give the audience your education background, bit of your experience, how you took the company, take a little bit of time, who you are.
I went to DSM and IT College and up to O-levels. After O-levels, I went to Singapore. I did IB over there and then went to US. And I studied industrial engineering. So after that, I came back to Sri Lanka to start work with my father. About 3 months after he passed away, and at the age of 22, I had to take over the company. So at that time, the company was about $1 million, and we had about 300 people. So today we have grown to about $100 million with about 3,500 employees, and then we are present across 6 continents. And we have set up our offices in Australia, China, Singapore, India, Dubai, UK, and the US.
Right. I'm turning to you, Thimal. Who are you?
Well, I'm by professional qualification, I'm a chartered accountant. But the funny part, I say this all the time, I'm an accountant who never wanted to be in accounting. I haven't been in accounting ever. I did it because it's a well-rounded qualification that gives you skills in many disciplines. So I did it for that reason. Soon after I finished my articles at Ernst & Young, I joined one of the large multinational banks in Sri Lanka, HSBC, where I worked for about 8 years, and then I moved offshore. I worked for HSBC and Barclays for about 14-15 years in the Middle East in varying roles, and then came back. We made a personal decision to come back to Sri Lanka. Wanted the kids to grow up in Sri Lanka, get to know their grandparents, live in Sri Lanka, and so on and so forth. So came back in 2014, joined one of the large commercial banks in Sri Lanka, and then moved to DFCC Bank, my current company, in June of 2017. So been with them about a year. In my current role, I look after most of the product lines, the businesses, marketing, the branch network, and so on and so forth.
Right. With that introduction, I don't know who to ask this question, but I probably turn to him. What do you believe most, profit or the innovation?
Good question, I think. I think both go hand in hand. I think it's a bit of a trick question. But profit, obviously, from a shareholder, stakeholder perspective, is important. But what we shouldn't forget is profit for the long term, and sustainable profits is what it's all about. And unless we innovate, unless we change the way we do business and banking, profits could be short term. And we've seen that. I don't want to go through the examples across the globe of companies that were very, very profitable, but didn't like the change, didn't innovate, didn't keep up with the change, and what's happened to them now. So obviously, if we want to focus on long-term sustainable profits, then innovation is part and parcel of that.
Right. So, for the benefit of the audience, would you mind sharing some of these experiences? Because mostly the people here gathered here to understand your walk, and you're talking your walk now. So tell us in your walk. Doesn't matter it's the current company or a different company. You have the privilege of bringing any other experiences. Tell us your walk. Where have you took the innovation as a key point to make a change, and what is that?
I think without looking too far back, Anura, if I look at my current role with DFCC, we are a bank with a 60-year history, but for the major part of that 60 years, we were a development bank. And we are known as a development bank, and then until we merged with our 100% subsidiary Vardhana Bank in 2015, and we are now, of course, a fully-fledged commercial bank. So having that history, having that background of development banking for DFCC, it has been absolutely imperative for us to innovate and change the way we do banking, especially in terms of commercial banking, in giving us that ability to attract individuals, small-time enterprises, and so on and so forth, moving away from that project finance background and focus, keeping abreast of what is happening in the market, being appealing to the target segments that we haven't typically been working with, like the millennials, the young salaried executives, and so on and so forth. So we've had to be at the cutting edge of technology for that reason. I think this is just the beginning of that journey. If you watch DFCC over the next few years, I think you will see a remarkable change, a transformation taking place. We are very much glued on to what the customers are looking on. Everything, in fact, we start with the customer at the heart of everything we do, what we innovate. And you will see a remarkable change, I think, going forward in the banking sector as a whole.
Right. So hold your breath, and I'm going to ask anything about Orange. I'm going to ask you, do you believe, Kushan, banks have to be innovative?
Definitely.
So, looking two of you, look at your eyes, tell him.
Yeah, banks has to, because see, innovation makes the differentiation in products. So when you have a competitive field, you just need to keep innovating, making it different to the customers. See, we all started, long time ago, the business started with trading commodities, then it went into products. And then people were talking about it's not about products, it's about service. Now from service, it has now moved to experiences. So I think that along the way, everything just changed from one step to another with innovations. So now what people are looking for is an experience. And how do you innovate that experience?
Absolutely. And just to add, I mean, gone are the days I think customers want to walk into branches. I mean, they want to interact and deal with branches in their own time at their convenience through devices of their choice, like the tab that you're holding or the mobile phone. So unless banks cater to that and provide that convenience and experience that the customer is looking for, I mean, we are dead.
Right. So I have few questions coming online now, but I'll defer because need to get to a level that I can ask questions. So my next question to you probably, do you, Kushan, believe the innovation, I'll start probably with invention, because I think you are into R&D side as well, because I know you have a lot of products in Sri Lanka and I think they're exported as well. So in terms of your lab and in terms of your R&D is concerned, invention, does it start from you or from the lab? Is it your brainchild or is it someone else?
It's me because of my passion for innovation, and it was one of the first things I did when I took over the business was setting up a R&D department. So today we have about 83 people in the R&D. So from product design to the whole works, we do it in-house. So even the tools are done in-house for the plant. Yeah. I speak to our R&D guys, so by the time we go to the office, we have a prototype or sketches and things like that all done. So it's an amazing place. We can, do a lot of interesting things.
Yeah. So I think I was going to turn to Thimal, but I thought this question is important now. One of the things we look at, Kushan, in a large business like yours is a sustainability. Now, when you say that you have the passion, that's really, we can see that, I mean, from the products you have bought. But how do you think this company can take forward? Because your passion is there. You're the thinking behind. So what is your plan to, as a leader, how do you see that taking forward?
Yeah, see, every time we go to it has become a really necessity for us because we are late in going into international, as a Sri Lankan company and building a Sri Lankan brand overseas. So you have very established European businesses already in the market. So now we need to go and compete with them. So how do we compete as a new brand, right? So you have to sell it cheaper than because nobody wants to change. And so the only reason that they want to change is if there's some product differentiation. And when you say you're from Sri Lanka, that's also a big problem. My maids are from Sri Lanka, and do you guys do these things? Or do you get it from China? So it's a huge problem. So they expected us to do some things even cheaper than China. So it becomes a huge challenge. So the only way that we can make that differentiation is look, this is your European product, and you say this is Europe and very good. Look at ours. It shines more. It's got more features, and we designed in a way where we could interchange. So that earlier we had huge problems every time we go to a country. It's not the same set of products that is available in Sri Lanka in another country. Yeah? Because Sri Lanka is more of a primitive market. So our range and everything is also quite primitive. So with this, when we go to a developed market, it becomes a very, very difficult task. So we had to come up with lots of these new products, but we did it in a way where it can be interchanged. So for example, the grid that we made for Australia, we did it in a way that would fit the US as well. So we looked at the global market. So even if you're not in the US market at the time when we were designing the Australian products, but we took that onto account. So if you were to go to US, we still have those components that can be interchanged. So only we had to then produce the middle components that would go in to make that differentiation. So we made it in a very modular way. So it's, again, that became like an invention, right? Nobody in the electrical field has ever done that. But we did it because of our own necessity, right? Otherwise it's going to cost us a huge amount of money.
Okay. Right. So I think there's a connecting question comes, but I'll ask that after this question. Thimal, many a times I've seen leaders saying, don't try to be too smart, do it what I say. How many times you say that?
When, to be completely honest, when it's required, but I hope, I think Anton is not in the audience anymore, but I hope not too often. But it's ultimately boils down to execution. I mean, we can keep talking about a lot of things for a long time. We can try to perfect it in the lab before we put it out to the market, but I think timing is key. So there's no point innovating and coming up with the best product after your competition has already launched it to the market. So sometimes you've got to get down and do it. So I mean, yeah, not in so many words, but the culture at wherever I work has been execution. So get it done as soon as possible, even if it's not the most perfect product to put out in the market then.
Yeah, because you have to get the competitive advantage.
Speed is, I think, key.
I'm giving this question, any one of you can take, whoever willing. So from the audience, a question coming. If employee comes up with an innovative idea, having a real value proposition to, but it's not aligned to the company objective visions, right? How should manager respond? So it could be you, it could be your leadership. So how should they respond? So any one of you can take.
I would say, okay, it's a new idea, new innovation. We will see, okay, what can we do, or we pose the same question back to the person who bought it up to say, okay, with that, can you see how this can be applied to our vision, right? Because there's a lot of things that you could take from other industries into your business. So sometimes it's also the responsibility of the leader. Once you find an idea, and how do you adapt it? So suddenly you come up with totally new thing that can be very relevant to your business.
Okay.
And these days we are working quite a lot of this kind of things.
Okay.
Which looks totally outside our business, but in one way, if you put it right, it becomes totally relevant.
You want to take?
Yeah, one thing you should never do is just simply dismiss it, saying this is not in line with our vision now, the objectives of the company, right? So that will just kill the enthusiasm. Do you think he's going to come up with another idea ever again? Probably not. So at least give him a hearing, explain your point of view, listen to him, because he might probably have some different ideas when you actually sit across the table and try to understand what that idea is all about a little bit more in depth. So yeah, I mean, if you want to foster and nurture new ideas, innovation in a company, then you need to make sure that you give it the required time and the attention when you get ideas from your people. Otherwise, it's just going to be...
Did you read my notes here?
I did.
Because you asked my next question, that's why I said, but I'm holding that question. But audience, any questions before I further proceed? This is an opportunity to interact. Go ahead, Richard. Peter, sorry.
Kushan, you said that most innovation comes from you. That was the question. So why not come from the start? You have so many R&D, plus you have other staff also sometimes. At the ground level, they might be able sometimes to give you much more insights of exactly.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying he asked the way he asked. He said whether it's
now it's boiling.
No, there's a lot of innovation that comes from the staff as well. Because it was my passion on innovation, most of the time I spend in the R&D department than anywhere else in the organization. In fact, nowadays I don't stay anywhere else either, only in the R&D. So yeah, so I get really involved in it, but I see it from one perspective, and then you have a lot of people who would look at also from different perspectives. Like say, for example, now our teams are moving into data analytics and that kind of side on data side, and I'm more from a brick and mortar side, so I don't understand that part of the idea. So all those coming from our teams.
So it should be a culture in the organization of the innovation.
That's right. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I have a question for you. When you take your bank, right, it's Pitch as one of the banks who gives better rates compared to a competitor, right? Down the line for the next 2 to 3 years, how you want to brand yourself? Rather like operational excellence could give better rates, or you want to make it like more innovative, like a niche brand could give innovative product at a high service stage? So which one is more suitable for your strategies when it comes to market share or whatever the future plans?
Thank you for the question. I think if you play that price game, it's not a sustainable thing. So you've got to, yes, at certain times, in order to maybe get a foot in the door of a new relationship, you would need to compete on price. But in the long run, if you want a sustainable business model, then you've got to differentiate. And for me, tech is one way of differentiating, but guess what, that can be replicated. So true differentiation is going to come from the service you offer your customers. And more than the tech, it's also the personal touch, how you greet the customer, how you talk to the customer, how flexible you are in terms of the requirements of the customer. So that to me is the long-term sustainable differentiation in any industry. For that matter, if you ask Kushan, I think he'll agree, is the service and how you respond to customer needs. Being current, being relevant to what customers are looking for from a bank.
Right. Before I go to any more questions, I'll go on that path what Thimal opened. So my question is, as a leader of a leading bank in Sri Lanka, being a deputy CEO, Thimal, what you and your leadership use as tools and techniques to communicate and build a conducive environment for innovation? How do you do that?
Quite a few actually. DFCC as a bank actually encourages a lot of new ideas, new thinking, and innovative changes to processes and products and so on and so forth. So even currently we have an e-brochure going on our internal communications, asking people to come up with innovative ideas, changes to processes and so on and so forth, and rewarding them. In addition to that, and we get quite a few novel ideas, new way of thinking, because at the end of the day, the people in the front line, the people on the floor, are the ones who are dealing with the customers, are the ones who are facing the challenges. So they are the ones who can also think of ways of doing things differently and doing things better. One of the biggest responses you get to why you are doing certain, if you ask somebody why are you doing this in a certain way, the answer is that's the way we've always done it, right? So that's the most common answer you get. So that is why we encourage a lot of the front-end people to come up with ideas, new ways of thinking, new ways of doing things, challenge the process. Why are we doing this? Is that there may have been good reasons for doing it in the past, but is it still relevant? Is it still required? So the other thing we have is something called the Idea Hub, where we have a cross-functional team across the bank that meets on a monthly basis, takes up new ideas, new product development ideas and suggestions from the bank, evaluate them, and then see through until fruition, until the product is launched or the service is delivered.
I think this must be a statement by Steve Jobs, if I'm not mistaken. When you're successful, you'll be introduced to the world, and when you fail, the world will be introduced to you. How many times the world has been introduced to you?
Many times. Quite a lot. Sometimes you just can't understand how it happens like that. I remember a time we were in Myanmar launching our products, and I get a call from Sri Lanka. The products we are about to launch has to be recorded. So I had to do an entire launch, going to the stage, talking to the customers how great our product is, knowing that tomorrow I have to record all of this. That was an absolute disaster. It was one of our circuit breakers. We've been doing this product for 20 years or so. No problem, not a single failure. And during this Chinese New Year, the new set of employees had come to our supplier, and one of the components they have supplied, which is 1 millimeter short. And so when it gets into our product in Sri Lanka and we manufacture it and we put it and we go through these testing machines, it passes because we test for high voltage, not for low voltage. So for high voltage, because it's just a very tiny thing, it jumps. And so, but in Myanmar, when an electrician goes and puts a multimeter, they can detect the fault. So I had nothing to explain. You said you have these sophisticated machines. Yes, but those can't detect this thing because it's such a simple thing. But yeah, so what happens is when you start doing something new, it's always chance to fail. But we fix things as we go along. And this kind of disasters do happen to us. It happens to Mercedes, it happens to Toyota. So this was just unfortunate incidences. But there's no way, sometimes no matter how you test it in-house, nothing like field testing. And to field test, you need to go out there.
So I think the message here, Kushan, if I'm just summarizing, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're saying is that as a leader, you expect the unexpected, which is like sometimes it fails. So, but it doesn't mean that you stop. I'm quite sure this happened, which year? This happened in Myanmar?
This happened about 5 years ago.
But still you continue to innovate.
Yes.
That's the message. I think that's the message to the audience, that you never stop, right? Culture. So, is it something you have to write the innovation, particularly innovation, more than invention for your organization? Is it something that is in the culture, or basically blood of the people who are running, or it should be it on the walls? What do you believe? How do you encourage?
Yeah, a lot of people talk about innovation, but when it comes to actually doing it, there are so many gaps and so many drawbacks in that execution. So again, talking about my current organization, innovation is a part of our we have a set of core values. It's a very high-ranking value of the organization, innovation. So it's intrinsically entrenched with the vision and the objectives of the organization. Like I said, it's not just lip service. We do encourage it. We reward people for it. We recognize staff for coming up with innovative ideas. So it's quite deeply entrenched in the organization.
So there's a question relevant to that coming from the audience. I'm just taking it now so that we don't delay further. How have you used innovation for the success of your business? Do you have any examples? I think the question is about, do you have any employee bringing, relevant to the question, any employee bringing, is the culture encourage that? Do you have any examples to share? Even it may not be DFCC, anywhere.
Quite a few actually, but again, talking about the most recent ones, our credit card launch. Now we had the unique challenge of being the 15th or 16th bank in the market to come up with a credit card, make it stand out, make it different, make it to be wanted by the people. In a wallet full of credit cards they already have, how do you make our card stand out, and so on. So I think there were a lot of discussions, brainstorming, and I think it was some of our staff members who actually came up with we came up with some very innovative features on our credit card. One was the 1% cashback year round. Again, cashback is not new to cards, but the way we do it, where we give it back to the savings account of a nominated individual, plus the contactless, the pay pass feature that we introduced on the credit cards across all our products, were ideas that came from our own staff. I wasn't there when our virtual wallet was introduced by DFCC Bank a few years ago, but from what I understand, again, that was as a result of this idea hub that we have in place today, ideas that were coming up. And when we launched the wallet, we were the first to launch a proper banking wallet in the industry. Nobody had even thought about it, and that again is something about innovation. Sometimes you don't really see the need immediately, but you've got to be able to see into the future and see what kind of route that product can take, the service could take in terms of customer needs and so on.
Right. Kushan, I got a question about patenting, but before I go there, again, I'm opening for audience because I got a couple of more questions coming. Actually, it's you can see there's a lot of questions coming. So I probably give an opportunity if you guys sitting in asking, sending these messages, you can ask now from them.
Yeah, and so what we often see is that a lot of innovations are there, but of course innovations are a little bit low on the side. So is it because that normally once we spend some time with R&D and once you launch the product, so that you see in the next couple of days or weeks, you have another person coming in, copying your concept and giving it a better output. So is it because of that, or how do you feel it?
Question is to me.
So he,
India.
either one of them.
Yeah, I would say, like, say, sometimes we have invented quite a lot of interesting things, but sometimes we don't have a real application. So we keep it in our library of things so that we could then take that and something else and create a product. So for me, whether it's an invention or innovation would really not make too much, because at the end of the day, how would that lead to better customer satisfaction? How would that rate your brand and move forward into it? So, I mean, if there's somebody else has done something very interesting, just get some inspiration out of that, and then, like today, a lot of things are based on Apple's designs. So I believe it's not only innovation, and it's about not only technology, but you need to bring art and technology together. So things needs to be beautiful. So that's where the real strength of innovation comes in.
Just a question. Kushan, do you do painting?
No, I don't. I paint businesses.
Okay. Thank you for the answer. So, any more questions? Which questions?
When it comes to innovation, there are a number of scenarios where you want to invent something, but you don't get the right product, but you won't end up somewhere else. For example, like sticky note. You have similar examples where you want to get certain product. Instead of that, you end up with some other product which is highly successful, something that in samples.
Yeah, we one of our engineers developed a magnetic switch. Now we were trying to figure out, where would a magnetic switch be necessary, right? And then another team came up with a glass range. Beautiful, just glass switch with a touch. And we had an issue. How do you put a key card? Like in the hotel rooms, you have a. If you have a full glass switch and then you have a plastic thing coming out to put the card, looks really, really ugly. So what we did was we incorporated the two. So we fixed some magnets behind the glass, and we've also found a magnetic pen that you can paint on the plastics cards. So you could just go and stick it on the wall, on the glass, and the lights come in. And so it became really unique.
Right. So this is a patenting question. The question is, any one of you can take this. In Sri Lanka, when people invent things, we know in countries like the United States, you have patenting bodies, and the legal process involved in cost. Of course, it costs you money, as well as companies encourage. I know for some companies who are really investing on employees to get that patent and under their names, and also they have that money. So, do you think the mechanism in Sri Lanka encourage that? And if you say no or yes, what you do in your companies beside those rules and regulations? So, which one want to take first? I want both of you to answer that.
There's an interesting example. So I think patents are prevalent in the country, and once you actually get into it, it works well. But awareness amongst the general population is very limited, or they try to take certain liberties with that. Now, recently we opened our Buttala branch, and our team went the previous day to set it up, and lo and behold, we find this finance company right next to ours with a logo which is exact same color, almost the same design as well, right next to us, and same color scheme as well. So obviously we did take action, but obviously for that to come down, for them to take it off, it's going to probably take 6. So the whole execution of that process, once there is an infringement or a violation, is quite long-winded. So that to me is the biggest challenge here. But I think all our brands, all our logos, and so on and so forth, products are in fact patented.
Are you have the similar process, or what do you do to prevent that?
Yeah. I mean, we go on to the brand, the registration side of the
Correct.
thing, then
The ideas.
Yeah. One example I have was like few years back we acquired a company in Belgium, and they got few patents, and the profits that you make out of those products, they get a lot of tax exemptions in Belgium. So that was a huge tax benefit. So maybe Sri Lankan government should encourage things like that. So if you have patents and then profits on those gets, so that could be an encouragement for organizations to go on for patents. But what I found was getting patents done. I mean, I don't think we have done any patents in Sri Lanka yet, although we have applied for some. But we've done a lot of design registrations. But through our UK office, we figured out that applying for patents in UK is the most easiest. So that was another things that we are also getting because of our geographic
Distribution.
positioning. We are learning a lot of things because as a Sri Lankan company, we were not exposed to a lot of these basic things what other companies and European company would have. You know, when they come to Asia, it's very easy because they have everything in place. But when we go to overseas, we have to learn a lot of things. So we are handicapped in that manner.
I think interesting question coming from the audience. So trust me, it's not my question. I'm putting that first to Kushan. The question is basically, if I summarize, is proportionately or as a percentage, what would you as a leader invest in R&D?
3%.
3%. Do you agree with him?
Time or money?
Time or money? Money. He's saying money. What's the time?
I'll talk about time. I think we don't invest enough, although we should be as a leader. We get involved in a lot of the routine stuff, the non-value adding stuff that I call. That's perhaps the culture. The banking industry as a whole is quite strictly regulated, so we probably have more controls and regulations than most other industries. So by nature, we are a much more control-oriented industry. But as a leader, I think we don't spend enough time. It takes me back many years. I think one of an organization where I worked, the CFO was tapping his fingers, looking up at the ceiling, and the CEO comes by and says, "You seem to be jobless today. You seem to be quite free." And his response was, "CEO generals don't fight." I mean, there is a truth to that, because we often get very involved in the routine stuff. We don't really have time to think of the big picture, the future. What would the customers be wanting in a few years' time? What are our challenges? How do we make things easier for our staff and the frontline and customers, and so on and so forth? We need to be doing a lot more of that. I think as a leader, probably 60 to 70% of time should be focused and spent on looking at the big picture, looking at the future, and so on and so forth, rather than the day-to-day routine.
Okay, so my question was, do you agree with him? He's saying 3% of the budget he's spending on R&D.
I think different industries, it varies. I think Kushan probably knows what's best for his industry, but it is an industry that obviously needs to keep ahead of the competition, needs to innovate a lot. Just, I mean, smell test, I would have thought a company like that spends more than 3%, probably double that, maybe 6%. But just personally.
You laugh if you had the money.
So yeah, you got the money. You got the money left hand side. I can just stop the seats. You want to stop? So I think.
Now we need to pay that also. Unless you're giving us a grant, I'm more than willing to take.
Yeah. So I can negotiate, by the way. Kushan, he poses you two questions. I think first is 60 to 70% of what time you as a leader spend. A simple question. What time of percentage? I'm not going to further on that, just to understand, so audience understand your passion.
80%?
80%. Oh, that's why you're sitting in the R&D, right? I'm sure they might be wondering at what time this guy is leaving. And the second question is, when you say 3%, I'm quite sure there is some background behind it, and I'm not going to challenge, but to the people who are in this audience and watching us, definitely they want to start on entrepreneurship like you. So what's the guideline on that percentage?
No, it's 3% of our revenue.
Okay.
Puts on to R&D. We also look at, for the first 5 years, 50% of the profits of that product would go back to the R&D to offset that, to see. So that gives them also in a edge to see, the products that they've made or innovated is actually selling.
Right. I think this question I'll put to this coming from the audience, asking, have you found an employee in your organization who has done a significant change to your portfolio services that can be considered as a disruptive innovation? So it's actually more valued, more targeted to you.
Yeah, like I said, talking a little bit more in general, I think most of these services and products that we use today, we take for granted, have been disruptive innovations in their day. Something as simple as the ATM, the cash machine, or a POS machine, or even blockchain and so on and so forth have been quite disruptive, and now we don't even think about it. But trying to think about an innovation from an employee, banking, by the way, is considered one of the most disruptable industries, because obviously there's a lot of money being exchanged. Everybody wants to have a share of the pie. We'll see a lot of that beginning to happen in Sri Lanka as well. Looking at some of the recent developments in the market, there'll be a lot more disruption. I think that is there to be expected. But coming back to the question about trying to think of a really disruptive product, what my mind goes back to what I spoke about earlier, the virtual wallet, which at the time where no other bank had a similar product, was quite disruptive, and the convenience that it brought to our customers who actually took the trouble to download it and use it was quite tremendous. So I would pinpoint that.
Before I go to the audience for open questions, Kushan, I have one more question. Thanks, Thimal. One more question to you. As a leader and an inventor, when you have a new product or a change, there has to be some kind of a return on investment, right? I mean, you're not going to invest, your process must be having those steps. So is it the customer experience the most important thing for you, or the profit? I'm sure you're going to say it's depending, but usually what you look at, because I know you're very much into new ideas. So
we have from our finance department, it's a big sheet that they had to, R&D guys has to fill at the end, if you develop this, how much it's going to cost, what is the volume you're going to sell, and based on that they do a ROI calculation. Quite a lot of these things also come and saying that this ROI is not there. That is because sometimes you estimate, because maybe the product idea came from, say, for our Dubai office, but that same product, so the R&D engineer may not also know where else this product could go. So then when it comes to me, then I would look at to see, okay, maybe it's not profitable in this particular instance, but in the long run with other markets this could be. And some products you have to have it. If you don't have that product, you can't sell anything else either. So then you need to make that strategic.
It's a good message to the audience as well as who's watching later, because you guys want to see, I mean, many people think that some people go crazy on ideas and spend a lot of money. I think what you're saying is, while you're passionate, there is a process. Audience, any questions? Go ahead.
Kushan, how do you spot the talent, especially when you get somebody into the R&D team? Involved in the work in the organization first, or what's the typical recruitment process?
Ours is pretty.
Another one, and also how do you make sure from you said you have 80 people in the R&D team, and I'm sure you break it into teams. what sort of organizational methodology you use to get the maximum out of what people read is about?
Yeah, so basically, if you look at our products, it consists of plastics, metals, electronics. And now it has gone into software. Because if you put all these 4 elements together, we could create products. So typically our products are all hovering around these 4 technologies. So we got different teams for each of these technologies so that they keep working on bits and pieces. Apart from that, we've also got some designers who would look at it from the design perspective or art perspective. So that earlier we had issue when we come up with products, the product is ready but the packaging is not ready, the marketing materials are not ready, and because the marketing guys would not know until the product is out there. So we had a lot of delays in taking products to market. So now we created a studio inside R&D. So when they start designing the product, these guys will work on the packaging and how we deliver it. So so we are looking at it now from a total perspective. It's not just the product, but the delivery system as well. And how would it eventually get into the customer?
And how do you sort of individual to say whether that person should be in the R&D team versus processing something?
Yeah, we have a couple of amazing people, but they are not extraordinary people that we pick from some other places. I believe, you look at a place like this gives an innovative setting. So I believe the environment is also, we got a lot of talented people in Sri Lanka. It's just that we don't have the environment created for them to be innovative. Even as our company, when we shifted to Trace, I think most of our innovations came while we were there, because that environment just manifested. So if somebody wants to be innovative or come up with crazy thoughts on things like that, having a discussion here versus go to a Batkade somewhere, what's the difference, right? So the environment. So if you create a nice environment for your teams to work in, I think that alone will start bringing in. So
I think just to add that, I've heard one of the great poems said he had a very tough wife. I'm quite sure that brings also creativity. Question, go ahead.
Sorry, just another question on is there a mechanism for your staff if they bring out a good idea, creative idea, right? That you can identify who the individual is and also you reward them. Because what happens in most organizations, sometimes you take the idea to your superior. What happens is sometimes back of his mind says, brilliant idea, but doesn't want to do the curriculum, but when you do it, they just have that idea and say no. And after some time, few months, that manager or senior person will come up with that idea. So is there any method you have in your organization to identify who your staff and also your reward?
We don't have something very streamlined, although we should. We tried quite a few times, but over the time it has fallen short. But one that is working quite significantly is we have a process called TPM, Total Productivity Management. So in that we have machine operators and factory floor employees doing a lot of development to improve their area using Lean and all these kind of tools. So there they get rewarded. So like say sometimes our machines are now performs even better than when we bought new. So these old machines, because we've refurbished them, made it more efficient, and so a 20-year-old machine could work brand new. So because we did a lot of training for the people on how to improve the efficiency,
Process.
and we start mentioning the efficiencies of the machines and things like that. So in that instance, they get rewarded. But no, it is not too formal.
Yeah, I mentioned this before as well, Peter. We have a formal process of recognizing and rewarding people who come up with innovative ideas, new ideas, and they need not be any earth-shattering big ideas. Even a small process improvement that ultimately helps or gives a better convenience and service to the customer is, for me, is an innovation, and employees are rewarded.
I think quite a few times, two legends, please correct me. Quite a few times people think invention and innovation is all about pushing some to the market. Sometimes your own process changes, right? I think that is what is coming out. Really, I'm glad that question came, and I'm glad the way you answered, because that you clearly pointed out is not just outside, it's inside. Sometimes you have to improve things so that people are happy, and training and all. There's a very good question that I have for you, Thimal, because there's another question coming to you. Before that, I'll go to him. Small companies are the lifeblood of economy in Sri Lanka. What is your guidance for new entrepreneurs in terms of how they should bring up new ideas to market? Because small businesses are the lifeblood.
For sure, and Sri Lanka as a country, I don't think we have the infrastructure and the services to kind of incubate new businesses, give them the encouragement, guidance, and so on and so forth. If you look at some of the European countries, in countries like Germany, Switzerland, so obviously that's why they also rank at the very top of the innovation scale as well. There are incubation hubs, there are startup accelerators supported by not just the government but by large corporates as well. There are banks in around the world that have innovation hubs, like you were saying, Anura, and Kushan, the environment, just the bean bags, pool tables, just more like a coffee house inside a bank.
Absolutely.
Where employees can come in, spend some time thinking about new products, new services, and so on and so forth. Mainly the millennials, because obviously what makes them tick is quite different to what you and I are used to. So to encourage that kind of person to come in and come up with new ideas, not just employees but also what we call the fintechs in the finance industry, anybody coming up with new innovations that can help banks. There are banks that encourage people to come in, give them all the infrastructure, the guidance, and even perhaps certain amounts of finance to do their research and come up with products. Obviously there's an agreement that if they come up with a good product, the bank has the first right over those products to use it and market it. But so as a whole in Sri Lanka, that kind of services are limited. But obviously the guidance would be that SMEs and micro entrepreneurs play a large part in an economy of a country. So we need this kind of innovation, we need this kind of new thinking. Like Kushan said, we have a lot of good people in Sri Lanka. It's just a matter of large corporates and the government encouraging these people. I think the NEDA, the National Enterprise Development Authority, has made some inroads into that. They have some SME innovation hubs and all set up, I think, in Makandura. But I don't know how successful they've been, how many people are using those. Not many people know about it, so those are the challenges.
So, in the interest of time, I'm going to ask a very yes-no type of question. Both of you, when you pick your R&D, I mean, your R&D could be economist, right? When you pick up your R&D or innovation, people into that, who innovate, who invent, does the generations a problem? XYZ generations, or is it advantage? Like the people like us, do they think in the right?
We've always had young people.
Like us.
Younger? in our R&D. Probably because we are taking people with those skill set of mechanical engineering, electronics, and all that kind of stuff. So most of the people that we have are quite young graduates. But what we are doing is we are putting all these ideas together and creating products. So, but you're correct, we have a 70 20-year-old person who came from a different place and coming up with so many new ideas, but he's not gelling with the rest of the R&D. He's not in R&D, but still doing a lot of R&D work. He's like a lone wolf. Everybody else is not supporting to him.
Yeah, but he's coming.
But he's creative, so there are very creative people. So, but the only thing is, sometimes there's a huge cultural difference. They're very stubborn and they work in a different way. So he won't get the full support of the rest of the R&D to go that extra mile to help him. So this is a bit frustrating.
Yeah, I'm not looking at him, but I'm asking this question. In your bag.
I don't think when it comes to innovation, age matters at all. I mean, there are all different ages, backgrounds who come up with very, very innovative ideas. Like I said, innovation is not just technology. It's even as simple as changing a process or coming up with a different way of doing something. So, yeah, I don't think age is, partly because I'm not young either, I don't think age is a concern at all.
Okay, the question I'm taking from the audience, last one, is how much effective is prototyping? I think it's to you. Launching a new innovation, or both of you actually, sorry, both of you. How effective is the prototyping when launching a new innovative concept? What is the added value in such an approach? Is this classical way of service? I'm not really sure the last part. So the question is, do you do prototyping in these ideas, and how do you get the response back? I think that's the question.
Yeah, so in our case, it's a lot of products. So then we would make prototypes and show it to the product requester, because some of the products that we design here, our engineers would have never even seen. Like, for example, we recently are doing a plug-in type sealing rose for Dubai. So our sealing roses here is just, with the screws. And so when they came up with a concept like that, it was very difficult for our people to even understand, why do we need such a thing? So when we did the first prototype, we did it and we sent it across, they didn't like it. And then we had to redesign it, redo it again. So luckily we did those prototypes. Otherwise, if we had made the tooling and then send the product over there, that would have been fatal.
Yeah, prototyping or as we call it in banking, proof of concept. I think it depends on the risk. If you are coming up with a very high risk strategy or a product, obviously we deal with large numbers of customers, so something small going wrong can have huge repercussions across a large number of people. So if the risks are high in a product or a strategy, then yes, sometimes a proof of concept works, but it really depends on how many people you're impacting. We also have something called a champion challenger strategy. So you build challenger strategies. If you have a certain strategy at play and you want to change that, you build a challenger strategy, let the challenger run for say 3 to 6 months, see how the results are, and then make that the champion and go forward in that manner. So it really depends on, I think, the inherent risk of the product.
Right. I think we have come to the end of the session. So I would like to first invite both legends. First start from you. What's a message, short message as an entrepreneur, as a leader to the newcomers or the new generation? What's your message?
Yeah, so you don't go and try to do something that what others have done, because it's a very crowded market. Just find how to create a differentiation in terms of product, what you're offering versus what is in the market. So find out what that is and make that change, and then you take that as your USP. And don't get discouraged if it doesn't work in the first run. Businesses don't really happen overnight. You just need to have faith and a holding power. So don't also try to expect returns in 1 year or 2 years, and if it doesn't work, you're going to close down. Then if you're thinking on that strategy, don't get into business. You just need to be able to hold on for 5 years, 10 years, no matter what. This is going to be, you're going to believe in this concept and you're going to follow through all the way. I remember the business that I'm a third generation business. I am benefiting from what my father has done. So during this time, he was not benefiting out of the business that he had. So I am benefiting out of what he has done. And some of the stuff now, what I've done in the global markets, when I don't make money in our international business because everybody wants cheaper than China. So, but we are there. But I believe over time, maybe if I don't make money, maybe the next generation will. So I am there for the long haul because Sri Lanka needs foreign exchange coming. I mean, I could be comfortable doing business in Sri Lanka, but that will not help the country. So we need to build. So my goal is that we are doing about $100 million in Sri Lanka. We want to replicate that in 10 other locations so that we could bring $1 billion to Sri Lanka. So that's our vision. I hope everybody in the audience on your businesses, you'll set up a target saying that your business is going to be a $1 billion company one day. And if it doesn't happen in your lifetime, it doesn't matter, you're on that path, maybe your next generation will. So I mean, for me, whether I achieve in my lifetime or not is really irrelevant. I'm on that path, I'll go as far as I could, but one day it will help Sri Lanka.
Who said this? I'm not trying to make $1 billion company. I'm trying to make billion smiles. Who said that? It was you, right?
Yes.
Okay. How about you?
By the way, DFCC is there all the way to support your journey. But
I'm glad to be the broker here.
But my message simply is just do it. I mean, there are no right or wrong ways of going about getting into a new business. You just got to do it and see how it turns out. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. And slightly divergent to what Kushan said, you don't always have to come up with brand new stuff. There are lots of examples and products around the world that you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. You can easily adopt it for a market like Sri Lanka because they've gone through the pain, they've gone through the challenges, so why not benefit from the R&D they've done. So as long as it fits the market, fits the customer's need, I think there's nothing wrong in replicating stuff that has worked well for other organizations as well. And banking obviously being a slightly more regulated business, there is not much room for error. So we prefer to go with tried and tested products and services, but that's why these innovation hubs where you can, in a controlled environment, come up with new strategies and products that we can test before we take it to market is quite useful. So, I mean, sky's the limit. Just do it is my advice.
I think you're shifting or moving from a number of big banks like HSBC, HNB, and then did you say Bank of
Barclays.
Barclays, yeah, Barclays now in DFCs. I think that clearly shows that amount of knowledge and that kind of innovation you could do in a company. So that's great. So I first want to come to the conclusion. Please add if this is not the conclusion. Invention and innovation are two key factors measuring success of an organization, and the leader plays a central force or the central part in that. You demonstrate, you drive the culture, not that you do every innovation, but you drive it. The one last thing I capture is being innovative is a primary differentiator for a competitive organization. I think you both have said in these statements a number of times, we compete, we are ahead of people, we are ahead of our competitors because we change. So I think it's more than it's something that you can do, you got to do that. With that, I would really love to thank Kushan for coming with a very difficult and tough schedule today. And I wish you all the best in your walk. You have a long journey to go, and I'm quite sure you will not set just for this generation, a couple more generations ahead. So all the best, good luck. Thimal, I think you've got a long journey to go in the FCC. I'm quite sure we see big differences, innovations, and I'm quite sure people like him get more credit advances, and I can help you there. And all the best in your journey. we see more walks of you, and I'd like to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Finally, I want to thank Noteworthy Cafe for sponsoring the venue, and the audience and watching us. Please like us in Facebook if you really like this concept, Talk the Walks. Put comments, constructive criticism like you always do. I hear from US, UK, different countries. So please do that. And finally, keep watching us. We are having more interesting topics to come with legends like this. Before you all go, I have a token of appreciation. I hope this is the right one, so let me first open and show the camera. This for you, Kushan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And it's actually made it hard to open, so yeah.
Innovation.
Yeah, innovation. I will break it open some way. Okay. So it's for you, Thimal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'm thanking my Talk the Walks team for organizing this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.